Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. Dilma Rousseff has been chased from office. The president of Brazil voted out 60 to 31 by the 61 to 30, excuse me, by the Senate. With us to talk about it, Brazilian attorney Fernando Santiago in favor of the destitution, Luc Aldon of the March 18th Democratic Movement against, Juliana Moura Bueno also against. She joins us from Brasilia, human rights activist, former director of the Human Rights Ministry under Rousseff. Welcome back. Welcome back as well to Jamil Shadeh, Brazilian writer, the author of Rousseff, A Story of the President. Just before the break, we heard Fernando Santiago say that it's not a coup, but an important day for democracy, an opinion shared by Dilma Rousseff's conservative challenger in the last presidential election.
Today, Brazil can say, yes, we have democracy, yes, we respect the Constitution, and we're going to punish Rousseff, who did not. What will remain after this whole episode is a strong country, more respected internally and internationally.
Juliana Moura Bueno, what's your reaction?
Well, my reaction is the fact that what kind of legitimacy from now on has someone to rule that has taken the presidency without being elected by popular vote? Well, will Brazil be better off without Dilma? Will Brazil be better off with Temer? I personally believe that there's a consensus in Brazilian society that says, and shown by opinion polls, that almost 80% of Brazilians say that they're against Michel Temer. Well, they do not want Michel Temer to assume, and that is the will of, that is what opinion polls say, that is what opinion poll says about the population of Brazil's will.
Let me bring in Fernando Santiago on this. We saw that the president, the acting president, now this president, didn't show up at the closing ceremony of the Olympics after being booed at the opening ceremony. Does he need to call a snap election? Because the next poll is not scheduled till 2018. His legitimacy, is it in question?
I don't think so. When you take a look at his election, he was really elected by the people. When you see the bill of election in Brazil, there was a face of Dilma Rousseff and the face of Michel Temer.
They ran as a ticket together. This was before their falling out.
Yes, but they vote for them. They vote for both of them. So in what concerns direct democracy, he was legitimated by vote, and he was chosen by her party as well. So when we talk about legitimacy, I wonder, I don't think it's the right term to use. We can challenge many of his qualities to rule, but I don't think legitimacy would be one of them.
Luc Aldon?
Can I say? Sorry.
I believe we have the same opinion on that. We vote for the president and the vice president, and that's a mistake to have had Michel Temer as a vice president, and Dilma said that in many occasions. The thing is, we vote for a project. And for the last days of the interim government, he has been implementing a project that has failed in the polls for 4 times. So he's not implementing the project that we voted for. He's implementing another one who failed 4 times.
But did Dilma Rousseff promise what she couldn't deliver? What with the state coffers empty because of the recession? At some point, you have to tighten your belt.
That's a political question. That's a big debate, and that's always the problem with governments. You promise and you take your promises to be elected, and then the people make a preference. And if you implement the program, then you were a good president, and then you are re-elected. If you're not, then you are accountable to the people who voted for you, and then we take it to the next elections. And I really want to react to something that was said twice, is that this is a technical and a political trial. But there were, on technicalities, the public ministry, the Senate, every technical expertise said there was nothing wrong with Dilma. Everybody. So there is no crime. So I agree with the argument that the impeachment is in the Constitution. Nobody cannot agree with that. But in the Constitution, it is written that you need to commit a crime. in this case, it was budgetary responsibility.
Jamil Chadeh, let me bring in you in on this. The Senate voting not to bar Rousseff from public office. Will she make a comeback? Will she still be in the picture?
Well, it's very hard to say. It is true that the voting on one side impeaching her, on the other side maintaining her, let's say, in politics, is at least a controversial one, to say the least. If you have committed a crime, you probably need to be ousted not only from government, but also from politics for a couple of years.
And how do you explain the discrepancy?
Because coming back to the point we said in the beginning, this is a power struggle. I do agree with Mr. Santiago when he says that it was legitimate. Yes, and yes, let's say the procedure was all followed. Now, and again, I do not view this government as let me be very clear. I don't see Dilma's government as being, in a way, legitimate, neither, in a way, not because of the polls, but because of what happened, and especially because of the scale of the corruption. But what I said, that was not a legitimate outcome, because it is the future that we have to look at it. And the future is very bleak when you see that actually a decision was taken today that actually is controversial, because it doesn't point to the same direction. You're at the same time saying she cannot be in power, but you're saying that she can be in politics. On the other side, you're giving the government, let's say, the power to a government that, yes, it is legitimate, because the Constitution says very clearly, if the president is impeached, it is the vice president that has to take over. This doesn't take the legitimacy out of Mr. Temer. The legitimacy of this government is the fact that many of its members are also indicted, or at least quoted in corruption scandals as well. So you have the worst of the situations. You have the situation that the previous government could not run the country, and the current government, who judged basically the former government, is also implicated in this huge corruption scandal. And this is the real drama of the country. It's not the fact that she will be running or not running again in the near future. The real drama is the fact that you have a dead end at this point.
Will you agree, Juliana Murabueno, that what the Workers' Party can be ascribed as guilty of is not reforming a system where you need that patronage, you need that slush fund money in order to keep those coalitions together with smaller parties? The former president, Lula da Silva, implicated up to his neck in all of this. Should there be a constitutional reform of politics?
Well, I would like to say that yesterday and in many opportunities before, Dilma Rousseff, she knew that she didn't have any support anymore at the Congress. Although, even if she came back, she knew that she wouldn't be able to govern. That's how our presidencialismo de coalizão, our system works in Brazil. If you have majority, you pass your bills. If you don't have majority, you struggle with your government. And she promised a referendum on whether she should stay or not, and new elections, and political reform. So what in my point of view, is that those who are taking power right now, they are not promising any reforms. They are not promising referendums. They are not promising new elections. They are promising tighten belts even more than what has done before. I mean, as being part of the former government, I can say that we were definitely tightening our belts, yes. But President Dilma Rousseff and her team, they made everything possible to keep the policies she developed in the previous moments. And that is really important to say, because people say that what she said during elections was not she was actually doing. Well, her intention was to do everything possible to keep with her policies. And we have to judge her for so, and not for having committed an electoral crime or anything related to that. And one more point. This
call for reforms coming a little too late. Shouldn't the Workers' Party was in power for 13 years? Shouldn't they have implemented these political reforms that put a halt to corruption much sooner?
Well, in 2013, just after all those movements, those street movements and people asking for reforms, she came to TV and said, I have 10 points for reforms. What happened at the day, not even the day next, 6 hours later, PMDB, the party of Michel Temer, said they were not supporting those reforms. And they have majority in the Congress. So that I think that is the point where we can cross the line where the past, who are those who want to stick to the past and who are those who look for future.
All right, we saw that the big protests start in 2013. Then it all led to that impeachment, the Operation Car Wash. Back in May, when he took office after Rousseff's impeachment, the then acting president, Michel Temer, promised he would steady the ship.
My first word to the Brazilian people is the word trust. Trust in the values that form the character of our people and the vitality of our democracy. Trust in the strength of our country's economy.
Trust in the recuperation of our country's economy, he says. However, his government calling for a constitutional amendment to cap spending on things like health and education, where talking about a country where one of the biggest successes of Brazil has been lifting millions out of poverty. Is that going to win him trust at the next election?
I'm not sure that's going to win him trust, but the problem with Brazilian economy is that it's one of the most indexed economies in the world. Everything is indexed to the minimum wage, to minimum, to inflation, and everything is indexed to the laws. And what they're trying to do is to break up this kind of, to use some leverage that he cannot use today. And
but if you stop that indexing, does that increase inequality between the rich and poor after seeing Brazil lift itself out of poverty over the last few decades?
Not really. It's not increasing. It's not, for that matter, I agree there's much to work on that subject, but it's not by breaking up this tie that can help that. For the PT government did that in São Paulo. They created that, and then they came back with the idea of an indexed public spending on that in São Paulo when they were ruling the state, because they said that it's not the best way to do so. We cannot find that here in France. You cannot find that in any developed economy. You do not see a law that says you're obligated to spend X% of public spending on education. So I don't think that's the element that would trigger that transformation that we seek for.
We've seen countries like Chile, when commodity prices were high, squirrel away the money that was earned. Brazil struck oil, and it turned out to be a curse. Should the government of the Workers' Party have better managed that sudden bonanza of black gold?
Just to start with something, Michel Temer cannot present himself to the next elections. He's already accused and convinced of crimes, and so he's ineligible for the next elections. Second, about commodities, the PT government should have managed better. That's full point. But then let's look at what happened. We have an economy which is based on commodities and which is very reliable on commodities, because of a tradition starting since the new democracy. So it didn't change a winning team, as we say in Portuguese, because it was working. And so it did not actually see very well what was going to happen with the crisis, because we are actually believing that the economy with China was going to work better. But what I want to say is that when you look at this question, looking at the future, and when you look at how Temer is actually, and the people in power with him now are actually looking at how to manage petrol, they're actually very interested in giving away the petrol to foreign industries and selling the petrol and selling land to foreign industries. So What we're also saying is that Brazil, with this illegitimate government, I must say, in my opinion, is that they're selling Brazil away. That's their goal, and that was their goal before, during the government of former president before Lula, FHC. They sell Brazil away, and that's what they're looking for.
Jamil Shadeh, it was state oil money that in part fueled this corruption scandal. Could more have been done, again, when the GDP was soaring in Brazil, in order to better manage that bonanza?
Yes, of course, much more could have been done. And being in Geneva, honestly, what I see is that this selling of Brazil happened already. Only in bank accounts in Switzerland that were blocked because of the car wash operation, we have already over 1,000 bank accounts blocked, with over $800 million frozen in bank accounts here because of corruption. So it is a real, let's say, withdrawal of wealth of Brazil, also related to oil, but also related to Odebrecht and other companies and other political parties, not only the Workers' Party. We have to put the dimension of corruption very clearly in order to understand the case in Brazil. And why do I repeat the fact that actually we cannot continue like this? It's because if we stay on this course, if we do business as usual as of tomorrow, this will not be dealt with. This withdrawal of money from Brazil, not because of only selling companies to foreign businessmen, but because of taking money out of the country and depositing here where I'm standing now in Geneva, $800 million that fled the country, basically.
$800 million that fled the company. And as you just heard Juliana Moura Bueno, Jamil Shadeh say, politicians from all sides discredited. We've seen opinion polls that show that for upcoming municipal elections in places like Rio and Sao Paulo, it's evangelicals that are in the lead. New parties, new splinter parties from the left. Are we going to see a further splintering of Brazilian politics to fill a vacuum?
Well, first of all, I think that not only those corruptions are, as people would like to say, that they are from PT, but many of these politicians who condemned Dilma Rousseff have been found to have practices pedaladas fiscais, either as municipal governors or as state governors. They used public bank funds to finance federal or state social programs, and without any consequences. And many of those are now ruling are now participating in the municipal elections. And I think that most of the feminists and many other people, many other left-wing movements and social movements, we are really concerned with the municipal elections, not only because probably what's going to happen, and that many politicians from conservators are going to say that we have to turn the page and we have a new political moment in Brazil, and what is left behind is left behind. But also, we are also concerned with the content of those municipal elections. I mean, the conservative side of politics has arisen in the past months or in the past 2 or 3 years in a way that we could never imagine. I mean, those
right, but the polls suggest that those people are going to be turning to things like the evangelical parties. What's your reaction to that?
Not exactly the evangelical parties, but I mean the evangelical, the speech that people from evangelical parties are making right now is spreading, and that it must be a concern of ours. Not every evangelical is conservative, but many of the politicians that stand for evangelical parties are very conservative, including political and social rights, and they are against abortion, they are against the liberalization of drugs, they are against same-sex marriage, and many of things that actually concern the national sphere. But I think that those contents are going to be transplanted to the municipal elections level as well, as a tentative of winning some votes that are the conservative side, and people do not, and they used to vote for PT and other and other parties.
Let me ask Fernando Santiago about this. Fernando Santiago, the rise of splinter parties, the rise of new parties, maverick parties that are against all of the political class right now in Brasilia. Is that good or bad news?
I think they're natural news. People are tired of kind of scandals of corruption. People are tired of the establishment, and they want new things. And unfortunately, I have to agree that we cannot see any new leaders rising out of this scandal and rising out this political crisis that we've been seeing. Who's taking place, it is the old school. They're still there. But one thing that reassures me is that what happens today shows that anyone who takes power has to watch their back much more than they needed to do in the past. Now they won't allow anything go wrong with the legal side.
Fernando Santiago, I want to thank you. I want to thank Luc Aldon. I want to thank as well Juliano Moura Bueno for being with us from Brasilia, and Jamil Shadeh in Switzerland. Stay with us, though. Our Media Watch segment is next. And we say hello to James Creedon.
Hi, François. So lots of chatter on social networks in the run-up to this vote, and indeed since the vote took place. Let's take a look at some of the themes on Twitter, first of all. The hashtag no coup in Brazil has been used by those who support Dilma Rousseff and who adopt her line that this amounts to a coup d'etat. And you can see their graphics that have been shared as well under that hashtag, showing Dilma Rousseff in a long line of, well, effectively leaders who were ousted in what some say is a coup. Help us save democracy, hashtag no coup in Brazil. That hashtag was used by politicians overseas, such as Britain's Ken Livingstone, who said, retweet if you say no coup in Brazil and stand in solidarity with those struggling for democracy and social progress. Elsewhere, you have images such as this being shared as well on social media, showing Dilma Rousseff and the notion of a permanent struggle to defend democracy. You have, of course, many who were also celebrating Dilma Rousseff's departure from power. Hashtag impeachment, voted and accepted. Freedom, we won. So many people saying this is a good day for Brazil. A corrupt leader has been ousted. Somebody must change her profile picture, says another who is happy to see Dilma out. Hashtag fora Dilma, also being used by those who are happy to see her out of power. And this is a hashtag showing, well, the completion of that impeachment process, which took, of course, a long time. So some, I suppose, perhaps happy just to see the process over, whether they're in favour of it or not, that perhaps we can just at least move on to another stage.
Fernando Santiago, at the outset of our conversation, Luc Aldon complaining about the bitterness of the whole impeachment process and a lot of sexism directed towards Dilma Rousseff. Do you agree?
I agree with the bitterness, which is, for me, natural to politics, related to politics. You can see the U.S., of course, to the presidency, it's not soft either. And what concerns sexism, I do not agree. She has a quite interesting political career. I agree with that. But she cannot be protected neither just because she's a woman. I mean, she's equal before law as everybody else. She cannot have any advantage related to that fact only.
In any case, what's coming across in my observation of social networks is how deeply divided the country is, and you really could read what's happening in two completely parallel universes almost. The reading of things. Remember the Dark Ages. This is it now. Do you feel it yet? In other words, the celebrations being photographed here upon news of Dilma Rousseff's impeachment are being likened to images from the Dark Ages and perhaps what could follow. Here's another one showing what some see as the death of Brazilian democracy at 27 years of age. Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix and Brazilian democracy all died at 27, says one Twitter user.
Luc Aldon, do you agree Brazilian democracy is dead? There'll be other links. So you heard Fernando Santiago say, well,
I want to say two things. First of all, we have said in this debate, in other debates, that representative democracy was dead in Brazil, and I stand by that declaration from the MD 18. because of the way the system works. But I do not find funny when people say that democracy was dead in Brazil. There are people dying right now while we are debating. There is a black man dying, a young black man dying every 23 minutes in Brazil. There is a woman being raped. There are senators and deputies being, they have to hear in the Senate during debates, I do not rape you because you do not deserve me. Or other stuff. A senator was talking, and then a journalist said, treated her as a monkey. So it is not funny. And what's happening in Brazil, whether or not we're talking about Dilma, and then suddenly things grow. And I want to pay my respect and all my solidarity and my admiration to all the women working in the Senate and in the lower chamber, whether they are elected or whether they are assistants, because it is not a happy place to work with. And if you are LGBT community as well.
Well, certainly a very divided picture, a lot of tensions coming across on social media. As I say, some saying this is the death of democracy, others saying corruption has been ousted. There is now no more corruption, which I suppose doesn't seem to stand up to any fair or impartial analysis, such as this tweet issued by Transparency International saying, well, Brazil's Dilma was impeached by a very corruption-tainted Senate with 60% of lawmakers under investigation. So certainly I think saying corruption has been defeated is just simply untrue in a very impartial
the reaction's far from over. James Creedon, many thanks. I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.